Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome to this week's Inspiration and Transformation. What is the soul? Is it really unchanging, eternal? Or is it just another way of us, tooting our own horns and getting more attached to just another level of myself? I love my clothes, I love my hair, I love my eyes, and I love my soul. Yet another thing that I can, Right, exactly. There's two aspects of the soul when we discuss it. One of them is the individual soul, and the other is the supreme soul. And there's no very, very clear way of explaining it, but the best way that I have found is the concept of the ocean. So we have an ocean, and just imagine for a moment that the ocean were infinite. So we're going to call that the supreme soul. Unchanging. And as I said, it's not a perfect analogy. The ocean, of course, changes. But it's the biggest, fullest thing we have that we can all picture. So we have the ocean. That's our supreme soul. Sun shines on it. Water evaporates. Those evaporated particles of water go into a cloud. The wind carries that cloud. Pressure causes some of the drops from that cloud to fall in different places. This is what in our lives we would call karma. The cycle of rebirth. That's what's pulled us out of the ocean. That's what's determined where the cloud has carried us. That's what has determined when we fall out of the cloud. So the process is the same for everyone, but each molecule of water is being carried to a slightly different place, being dropped at a slightly different velocity. It's therefore going to end in a slightly different place. But each of those molecules is ocean, right? Came from the ocean. It's going back to the ocean. That's what gravity is. It's carrying it all back to the ocean. As I said, on the banks of Ganga, the source of water is the ocean. It's going to keep going there. Every single body of water is moving toward the ocean. Some more quickly, some more slowly. They're all moving. That drop falls. That's what we're going to call our individual soul. That individual soul now, based on where it has fallen, gets a body. The body could be the pristine Himalayan waterfalls. And that water flows down in Mother Ganga. And when people see it, they pray to it, they worship it, they drink it like nectar, they perform ceremonies to it. And it identifies as that, and therefore develops what we would call an ego. Look at that. I'm so pure, I'm perfect, I'm beautiful. People pray to me. People perform my arati. They drink me for liberation. But actually that drop is ocean. Another drop falls in the sewage. People plug their nose, sweep it away, walk on the other side of the street. That drop also identifies with that. Oh, I'm so bad, I'm ugly, I'm dirty, I'm smelly. But ultimately that is also ocean. And the purpose of each of their lives, you could say, is to get back to the ocean. Whatever they may be covered with, whatever path they may go on, ultimately, it's to get back to the ocean. Now, once that drop merges back with the ocean, there is no drop anymore. There's only a drop until and unless it merges back with the ocean. So, our individual soul is taking these bodies, these incarnations. Now, this really is not perfect because on one level it actually hasn't gone anywhere. And there never was evaporation, and there never was a cloud, and everything is actually just ocean. So that's, if you're listening to a radio or you're watching TV and you've got this channel turner. Well, all the channels are happening. They're all real. It just depends on which level you're looking. In this case, the channels are going deeper and deeper. On the deepest level, there were no drops. There was no evaporation. There are no clouds. There was no wind. There is nothing but ocean. But that's a really, really hard concept to wrap our brains around. And the problem with it is that when we don't really fully understand it lends itself to a lot of complacency. I'm already God. What's the point? It lends itself to ego. I'm already God. I'm divine. Worship me. It lends itself to what we call a beautiful term coined by a wonderful meditation teacher in America, the term spiritual bypass, where we have a spiritual experience of the ocean, of the fact that there is nothing but ocean. And in the illusion that we are now done, because we are ocean, we don't bother to look at or address or deal with that which we're wrapped in, which for most of us is ignorance and anger and our identities and our expectations and our desires and our fears and our jealousies and all of that. We don't look at that. And this is where you get all of the difficulties of those on spiritual paths that we're witness to so frequently. So that actually is the fundamental truth. There's only one soul. It's never gone anywhere. It's never done anything. But on a level that is also true, just we've turned the channel, slightly less deep, slightly less capital T true, but at least something we can wrap our heads around, is the metaphor of the drops. that we're all in our own way the ocean. The core of who we are, the essence of who we are, that soul, is the divine. But we take our births, we keep coming back through this cycle of karma, of reincarnation, until we actually merge with the ocean. So it would be like if that drop of water, instead of relying on gravity, landed into a car. And that car took it for as long as the car could take it. And then the car broke down. And so now our drop needed a new car. And it got a new car, and then the new car took it a little bit farther along the way. And then that car broke down. And it kept getting newer and newer cars until it actually reached the ocean. So that's what we talk about with coming back. Until we've actually merged. And now there's no saying that you have to get lots of cars. This is the power of grace. This is the power of awakening. And this is what all of the enlightened ones, all of the saints and the sages and the rishis have told us is it's available right here, right now. There's nothing you have to become or do or memorize and then give back. All you have to do is awaken to it. And the minute you do, the drop merges with the ocean. And even still in a body, that soul is one.
You're listening to OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Hi, this is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Every 2 minutes, another American is sexually assaulted. If you or someone you know has been sexually assaulted, you are not alone. Help is just a call or click away through the National Sexual Assault Hotline. Please call 1-800-656-HOPE, that's HOPE, or visit RAIN.org, that's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
So the power of association is very, very important. And obviously here it's very easy to find that. But wherever you are, it doesn't necessarily have to be people who are of the same spiritual persuasion as you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be this particular religion or this particular yoga or this particular mantra. But associate with people who are on a spiritual path. People who are really working to bring a spiritual element in their lives. People who are spending their time that's not at the office in places other than bars and clubs and dance halls and shopping centers. People who are looking to really unfold and expand. And these days, almost anywhere, there's groups, whether it's meditation groups, chanting groups, insight and inquiry groups, study groups, Bhagavad Gita study groups, Bible study groups, and everything in between. Start to commit yourself to finding groups who support this path for you. And then, of course, on an internal level, It's very easy to find peace when it's all everybody's talking about, when you don't have the responsibilities of your daily life, when you're on retreat, when you're on the banks of a holy river where everybody's meditating. But ultimately the spiritual practice is about, as Pujya Swamiji always says, peace in the chaos. And that's where we realize that it's actually about us internally. And that grounding and that anchoring is something that stays with us wherever we go. So one good practice is every religion, every spiritual path, whatever your inclination is, every path tells us that the divine is infinite. Whether we primarily worship the divine in the form of Krishna or Shiva or Jesus, or it doesn't matter. There's no religious path that I know of that says God lives only in a box, God is not infinite. In their own words, in their own language, in their own way, every religion emphasizes the infinity, the infinite nature, the boundless nature of the divine. And so one beautiful practice is, well, can you take that message, that tenet that we've been very specifically given? I live in everyone. The Creator has created the creation. Well, that means the Creator is in the creation. Can you find it? Or her or it? Can you find the divine in your family members, in your employers, in your employees, in the person pumping your gas, in the person checking you out at the grocery store, in all the people with whom we interact on a daily basis, in your doorman? Because there's no teaching that I've ever heard of in which the divine says, oh, well, I'll be one with you people over here, but not you over there. If God is infinite, and God has created all of it, I mean, there's no sense that says, oh, well, God created this, and then he retired and somebody else came in and created everybody else. Right? I mean, I don't know any scripture that says God did this part of the world, and then, you know, he delegated the rest to somebody who clearly made a big mess of things. God did it all, right? So if God did it all, then God is there in it all. And of course that doesn't mean that everybody's experiencing and embodying their divinity. That's not what I mean. I'm not saying see every action that everybody does as perfect and divine. There's certainly plenty of actions that are done out of ignorance, out of fear, out of illusion. But in the core of that being is the divine. And even if they're temporarily blinded into illusion and ignorance and therefore are acting out of that, can you see the divine in them and respond to that? So it takes grocery shopping to a brand new level. And what it does is it enables us to be on a spiritual path wherever we are. And then we're not rushing home, fighting traffic, screaming at red lights that turned red right as we got there because we want to get home and have time to meditate. Otherwise, this is how most of us live, right? Get out of my way, I've got to get to my yoga class. Can we find all of that in our daily lives? Because it's there. And the sages and the saints and the enlightened ones have shown us that. And every one of them has said it's there for you also. So can we take them at their word and start looking for it? We go toward God and unite with God if we don't believe in God? Or if we have doubts about God, can we still be on this path? We were speaking last night, actually, about a very, very related topic. But I think what's most important is when we speak about uniting, remember that God is in everything. Any real union that you have is a union with God. Whatever you love, as Pujya Swamiji's just been speaking so beautifully about love and connection, whatever you love, whether it's a romantic love, whether it's love for a parent, love for a child, love for a sibling, a friend, love for a pet, anything that you love, the actual being inside, rather than just the packaging. If you're actually loving the person within, what you're loving is the divine. The packaging keeps changing. The cells of our skin are regenerating every few days. Our organs every 7 or 8 years. Within a very short period of time, if you love someone, there's not one cell of that person that was there when you first fell in love with them. So the question is, well, so exactly who is it you love? Well, it's not the body. I mean, certainly you appreciate the body also. It's certainly nice to have a hand to hold. But it's the essence in the body. It's the spirit in the body. The being in the body. And that essence is the divine. Because as we were speaking earlier about the drops in the ocean, so if what you're really loving is the essence of that drop, what you're loving is ocean. Whatever clothes it's wearing, wherever it might be on its path, what you're loving is ocean. And in the same way, the easiest way to connect with God, to have that experience of uniting, if you're not on a, quote unquote, traditional spiritual path or a religious path that has God involved, don't worry. Just really love something or someone. And what you will find is what you're loving is God. Because that's the only thing that is the unchanging essence. That's the only thing that even when that person is not physically in front of you, but you're still connected. Well, what are you connected to? If you can't see that person, hear them, touch them, feel them, but you still feel full of love when you think about them. Well, so what are you connecting to? What's just made you feel all warm and tingly inside if they're in another room or hundreds of miles away? Or they've passed away? What is that? Well, that's the essence of who they are, which is the soul, which is God. So don't worry. What you call it, how you think about it, you believe, you don't believe, doesn't matter. Love is the best path. And if we really, really, really love, God is right there.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Baldwin with People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. I grew up loving circuses and other traveling animal shows, but it never occurred to me what life might be like for the animals. Training wild animals to do things they don't understand takes force. Routine discipline with a hook or whip with the heel of a boot shows the animal exactly who's the boss. Don't patronize animal acts. Please contact People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
757-622-PETA.
Before you can think about the process, it's important to understand the goal, right? I mean, if you walk into a gym and you say, well, which of these machines should I use? They're going to say, well, it depends. I mean, are you looking for stronger biceps, or are you looking for a flatter tummy? Or are you looking just to lose some weight? Or are you looking for all-around toning? And then you're going to tell them what you want, and then they're going to say, these are the right machines for you. So in meditation, what we realize is it's actually an unfolding of that which is not self into that which is self. It's a noun, not a verb. Meditation. I know, of course, we have permutations that we turn into verbs. But in Sanskrit, the word dhyan, it's a noun. It's who we are. And that's very important because there's much less doing and much more being. Otherwise, those of us who are such perfectionists and we're so used to achieving, and it's like through our academic lives, through our career lives, it's just do this and do it the right way, and then we'll get there. And so meditation becomes just another way of that. If I meditate with the right technique, on the right form, I can also achieve this. Another thing, tick. Meditation, done. But it's being, not doing. And if you had to bring a verb into it, it would be an undoing rather than a doing. So it's a removal, much like we peel an onion. Removing the layers. And so when we say, what do we meditate on? Well, anything. If it can take you into that place. See, our thoughts, the monkey mind, is the greatest obstacle. Let me do one of my favorite little experiments with you all. Okay, so I'm going to kind of divide us right here in between our two little beauties and going back. So we've got two halves. This half, when I say go, you're going to chant Om. This half, when I say go, you are going to make all of the ruckus that you possibly can. Okay? as loud, as nonsensical, as what you would think inappropriate for sitting in a spiritual setting. As you can, I seriously mean, make ruckus, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Fabulous. Now we're going to do it again, but in the middle of it, I'm going to give one of the two sides a hands up. And if I give your side a hands up, it means you become quiet. Okay? Let's go again. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. The Om side. Were you Oming the whole time? Well, that's really funny because I couldn't hear you in the beginning. You sure you were Oming? Really? Did anybody else hear them? What was required to hear the Om? The ruckus stops. This is what meditation is. It's not about a creation of Om. That's there. It's about a stilling of the ruckus enough that you can hear what's there. So, your breath, a mantra. Your breath and a mantra. For those of us who have very overactive minds that need not one but two things to keep them busy. A candle flame with open eyes. For some people, the mind moves too much if the eyes are closed in the beginning. So you start with an open eye. A word. An image. Anything that when you connect to it or repeat it or focus on it, the ruckus stops. And it's not going to be the same for everybody, which is why it's so hard to cookie-cutter a meditation program. Just start. And the only last important piece about this is, whatever technique you use, whatever you're meditating on, is a vehicle to get you someplace. You don't want to lose the purpose with the means. There's a great story of these 3 men who are stranded on an island in the ocean. And they pray and pray and pray to God for something to save them. One day they wake up and there's a canoe on their island and they're thrilled. Oh my God, we've been saved. And they jump in the canoe and they paddle back to the mainland. And a few weeks later, somebody sees them and they're walking through the village with this canoe on their heads. They're walking in a line holding the canoe on their head. And the person asks, well, why do you have that canoe on your head? Said, oh, this canoe, it saved our lives. You know, we were stranded on this island and it saved us. And the person says, well, that's really great, but why are you carrying the canoe on your head? Oh, this canoe, you know, it saved our lives. We were stranded on the island. They were so indebted to the canoe that even once they got where they had wanted to go, now they've rendered themselves handicapped because you can't do much walking around with a canoe on your head. And what you'll find as you meditate, let's say you start with a mantra and the breath. So the awareness is on the breath and there's a chanting of a mantra going on. There will come a time where suddenly it seems that the breath stops. Don't worry, it doesn't, but it actually does seem like that. And the mantra stops. that's the time when we actually experience meditation. But what happens for so many of us, again, who are focused on technique and achieving, is it's, oh my God, I've lost the mantra, I've lost the breath. And we bring ourselves back. So if that state happens, let it be. And eventually, if you're still human, you'll start having a thought again, and then that's when you bring back the mantra and the breath. But in that very, very beautiful moment where the mantra is sort of chanting itself, you're not chanting it, there's no breath anymore to be watching. Don't freak out that you've suddenly stopped paying attention to the breath and suddenly stopped chanting the mantra. Recognize that it's carried you across. And just be in that place for as long as it lasts. And then when it ends, you'll bring the mantra and the breath back.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
When I broke my foot, for leaving me alone when I wanted to be alone.
And now, as a grown-up, I'm thankful for being able to take care of you, my dear mom, for taking you to your therapies, for understanding that sometimes you simply want to be alone.
Roles change without us noticing. That's why AARP gives you the information to provide even better care for your loved one. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
One of the core practices in the Hindu tradition is the cremation of bodies. And there are places like Varanasi in which that's the sheer number of bodies that are being cremated on a daily basis is phenomenal. And so she's asking about, as the water level gets more and more polluted, what's the future relationship and interaction between the performance of our religious duties and the care for our water? Wonderful. So, sure. Yeah, people with cameras are allowed to go anywhere. There's a piece of theory and a piece of practice, and I'm going to give you both because we're actually doing a lot of specific work. Let me begin with it in theory, and then we'll move into the practice. When we speak about lowercase t truth and capital T truth, that's, I was saying it referring to us here. But it's also really true about the truth that is given to us in our religious backgrounds. There are many tenets, principles, that are timeless and eternal. The world is a family. Everything in the universe is pervaded by God. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, these are the sorts of really universal tenets tenets, I've taken them specifically out of different religious texts, but the sorts of universal principles that no time, no place, no experience would render obsolete or incorrect. And then we have aspects which were very true at a particular time and place, at a particular type of world, with a particular type of society. And these are what tend to be our practices. And of course, society has practices as well, but we'll talk just about religious practices. Otherwise, we'll spend all night just on this. So, religion has certain practices. And one of them, as you've raised, is the practice in Hinduism of cremation. There's many reasons behind it. The reasons actually are very beautiful. A, you're not taking up space in the ground. B, you're not creating a place where people come to connect with you, because the belief is that I'm not in this body. And so when you bury the body, it creates a sense for all of the loved ones that if they can just go there and put flowers on the grave, that that's actually where I am. And inherent and very deeply embedded in this tradition is the distinction between the soul and the body, and how it's only the body that's died. And so the idea of creating a place where people would go and put flowers on the body is something that is not in line with the religion. And the idea that we are made of the 5 elements. We go back to the 5 elements. Ash is one of the greatest fertilizers. So we have really done the job of nature. I mean, eventually a body would decompose anyway, but rather than waiting for nature to do its work, we've helped it along and have given it this ash to serve in the soil. So there's a lot of reasons why it actually was a beneficial practice for a long time, why the tenets have been held so deeply. But then you come into a situation in which the water's polluted. There's too many people. Trees are being cut down. The sheer amount of wood required to burn a body is A, more than most poor people can afford, B, certainly more than the forests can afford. And so we're now in a situation of saying, well, how can we adapt? And we are adapting. And one of the things that's actually happening under Pujya Swamiji's guidance and leadership and inspiration is a push for what's called a green crematorium. Because we, of course, have electric crematoriums, but the sensibilities of people are that until and unless it's done with the wood in the proper way, with the family members putting the ghee onto it, putting the camphor onto it, watching it burn, that sense of final rites having been done according to tradition isn't really there, to just stick them on, a gurney and that, or in a casket, and that gets pushed into a big metal thing, and then someone flips the switch. It doesn't have within it that sanctity that so many are wanting. And so a technology has been developed which, under Pujya Swamiji, we've been working to get not just implemented in an official way, but something to get public support for and public demand for, which is a green crematorium, where it's still wood, but it's about 1/6 of the amount of wood that's needed in a regular cremation. So you don't end up in a situation where poor people are pushing half-burned bodies back into Ganga because they just didn't have the money to buy enough wood to burn it completely. and we're not deforesting our forests so much. It's a technology in which the wood is done in a certain way and the pyre is made in a certain way, and how that fire is made stronger and hotter, such that the cremation is done faster and with much less wood. So there's a push for that. There's a push amongst the religious leaders for burial rather than what's called jal samadhi, which is because they don't burn saints anyway. And so with the saints, what they do is they actually put the body as is into the river. And so Pujya Swamiji's been working with the whole saint community to actually end that practice and to bury the saints in proper ways. So the work is on, and I have full faith that as long as we have visionary leaders who are not stuck with the letter of the law, but rather understand the spirit of the law and are able to take that and adapt it into the current situation, that we absolutely will be able to address this. As Pujya Swamiji was saying, most of the time what people do is dream. Well, there's actually what's called a circadian rhythm, which has to do not just with your personal rhythm, but actually with what time of day it is. And regardless of what time you went to sleep, a greater percentage of the sleep cycle is spent in dream sleep toward the morning. The closer it gets to the morning, the greater percentage of dreams. So if you go to sleep at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, even if you sleep 8 hours, you're not actually going to wake up refreshed because you've spent such a huge percentage of that sleep time dreaming. Whereas if you go to sleep at 8, a fabulous ideal, not quite so possible, but nonetheless, we aim for something that early, and then if it becomes 10, 10:30, it's still okay. You spend a huge percentage of time actually in what's called restorative sleep rather than in REM sleep or dream sleep. And so you actually wake up much, much fresher even with fewer hours. So the concept of fewer hours is not something that you can just take and apply it across the board and say, oh, well then, instead of going to sleep at 2 and waking up at 10, I'm going to go to sleep at 2 and wake up at 6. It's not going to work. If you want to get by on 5 hours of sleep or less, or 6 or less, or whatever your goal is, rather than chopping off the hours at the beginning, chop them off at the end. Go to sleep as early as you can and chop them off at the end. This is something, of course, that the spiritual masters have been telling us for thousands of years, but modern science and sleep science is actually now catching up and telling us the exact same thing. लेकिन जब तक हम इसको पहचानते नहीं हैं, तो फायदा क्या है? She said, we've been told that the Guru's inside of us. So what about that? And I said, well, everything is inside of us. But until we recognize it, until we realize it, then we're not benefited by it. So, absolutely the Guru is inside. God is inside. Sab kuch andar hai. But in order to see it, we have to open our inner eye. If we're only using these 2 eyes, then we can only see what's outside of us. If we open our inner eye, our third eye, then we can actually see everything and hear everything. But until that happens, we need the inner guru reflected in the outer guru, or the outer guru reflected in the inner, either way, because they're both the same. It's very, very difficult to access the divine within ourselves. This is why people ask the same thing, mandir mein kyun jaye? Bhagwan to andar hai. Murti ka kya karan hai? Why do we have murtis? Why do we go to temples? If God is inside us, why go anywhere? Because are we living like God is inside of us? It would probably be difficult for most of us to raise our hand and say, yes, I'm living like God is inside me. Yes, I'm living like the Guru is inside me. So until we're really living fully with God inside us, going to temple reminds us. Praying before a murti reminds us. Whether the murti is an image of Krishna or Ram or Shiva, or it's a tree, or it's a sunset, or it's your grandmother. And until and unless we're able to hear the Guru within inside ourselves, and have that darshan, and be whacked around internally, without our mind coming in and saying, oh no, actually I'm really very good. मुझे तो सब कुछ मालूम है, गुरु तो अंदर है, भगवान अंदर है, कहीं जाने का कोई जरूरी नहीं है. That's what tends to happen to most of us.
He's the inner one. He's not only inner, inside of us. He is the inner one. Because of him, because of that inner one, you see all of that. When that experience happens, Guru happens. But the best part is not to wait for the Guru to happen. How you can happen to the Guru. If you happen, Guru is there to happen. Because grace is always there. I remember in my childhood, when I came back from the jungle, Swamiji here used to give one beautiful sermon every day in the morning, 5 o'clock. Everyone has to go there, and after the prayers, meditation, we had half an hour sermon. And these questions about Guru, because people are looking for the real touch. Not only teaching, people are looking for touch. But how the touch can be found? And the Guru is touch. Guru is not teaching. Guru is touch. So, he used to give an example. He used to say, just imagine you have a bucket, empty bucket, and the tap is on, and water is on, water is coming down from the tap, but unfortunately the bucket is upside down. Even the tap is on, but I am upside down. So what will happen? All that water, even is there, is for you, for your bucket, for your heart to be touched. But I am not there. It's not the Guru, it's I have to be there. If I am there, he's happening, he's waiting to happen. लेकिन बस कुछ हमें होने लगे, वहाँ बहुत कुछ होने की तैयारी है. सच्ची. बस प्रार्थना ये करो, मेरा प्रयास नहीं कि मुझे कुछ होने लगे प्रभु. बस उस कुछ कुछ की तैयारी ही साधना है। बस बहुत सुंदर, भाग्यशाली है।